Hi everyone, I'm Jason Todd, back to talk more data science and analytics and how it relates to digital marketing. So the next topic we're going to be talking about is business intelligence and reporting. So when you look at business intelligence and reporting, it really is an exciting area of how we're transforming all of this new information that's available as billions of consumers are using more and more of these mobile devices. And I like to start off as, what's really business intelligence and what's the difference from reporting? When you look at being able to provide a report on how their media content is performing, it's really a static snapshot where maybe you're rolling up data and just providing an output that answers a few questions about what's occurring. Maybe traffic is up, traffic is down, maybe you ascribe some meaning with that. What business intelligence really goes into is there's four fundamental layers. There's a data layer. This is where we're going to go get the website, what I call the raw data ingredients to get the website performance. So we're going to maybe go into what's tracking the actual clicks itself, pull that information all together into one spot so we can take a look at it. Then once that information is there, we're going to go into the next layer, which is analytics and intelligence. So then we're going to take this information and we're going to apply some context to it. We're going to sum it, we're going to count it. There's a whole spectrum of analytics that we can apply to this to really indicate what's happening. And you as a digital marketer, think of yourself as a guide and being able to convey to your end customers of how should they best look at their website? How should they best show how things are performing? And so this is where that data management layer and then intelligence layer is going to really come into it. In addition to that, then after we've summed or aggregated some of this information, the third area is we're going to publish decisioning content. Instead of just putting out static grids, we'll talk about how you can use charts and visualizations to really convey the essence and turn data into information and really talk about what's happening from a macro level and then drill into micro level events. And then finally, once you have that information, you can present it in various media, whether it's PowerPoint, whether it's on a mobile device, so your end customer can get their traffic information while they're traveling, or whether it's just a web-based application to be able to see what's going on. So when you look at this business intelligence and relate to what's happening in the market, I started talking about the word story and being able to convey a story. And so what business intelligence does is, as you put the questions that you want to answer in the story, like what has happened, how many and often, where exactly is the problem, you start to go up in sophistication with the questions. There's always a question behind the question, but the key is organizing the questions that you're trying to answer in a methodical area. So if you're looking at the screen, you'll see a baseline set of questions that talk about more historic components of what's happening and really where you're kind of pinpointing the problem. Then you'll cross a line where the tense of the question will change to more future state to say, what if these trends continue? Why is this happening? What will maybe happen next? What's the best that can happen? So that's where in that intelligence layer that you saw in the previous screen, we can start to apply different functions or different ways mathematically to predict into the future how performance might go with certain variables, and being able to use analytics to really talk about how that media is and how well it can best perform in that market. A great book that I've referenced in the past is Competing on Analytics. If you're looking for some interesting reading that maybe help further your career, the source is right on the screen right there. It's a great book that talks about how digital marketing is now using analytics to compete for the future. As you start to get then more advanced in the questions, the methods that we apply to answer those can then get more sophisticated as well. So we may start off with just covering the basics for the customer, summing the traffic, so summing how many distinct users came in, doing a count of how many unique IPs addresses have been logging into the system. So covering the basics just to show kind of what's happening. Then we might start to rank things, like ranking, hey, this portlet was my top performing portlet because it had the most clicks or views associated with it. And as the questions get more advanced, We just have methods that correspond to answer the question appropriately. So you'll see on your screen the complexity of the methods that go up that can be used to answer the different questions. And this data science field really covers how to use these methods and apply it to the story and then tell what's happening from a digital marketing perspective. I endearingly say, data scientists are what I would call great romantics or matchmakers. And I always get some friendly bantering from my team. But when you look at it, ultimately what we're doing is I'm marrying up the question to analytic method. So it's like business has question, analytic has a need to answer a question, and you're going through this matchmaking process. And it's very common as I start to look out and organize content to say, as an end user, what are the questions they want answered? And then once I list out all those questions on a sheet of paper, I'll write down what data then I need to answer those questions, and then potentially what I need to do that data. And what you'll discover is a lot of the questions that you get from end users are more historic oriented. And so you may have to tease out some ideas to say, hey, did you know we can forecast what traffic might be based off of some of your history? And then use some of these methods to tease that out and share that with your consumer. But as we're going through these questions, I'm constantly relating this back to return on investment and how will it affect their bottom line or their business. On the screen, what you're seeing is a whole series of analytic methods that can be applied to answer questions. So for example, you have the basic ones, sums and counts. You have things like financials, where it can look at net present value and all of the value. What I would call the ranking and the OLAP functions, these are doing min, max, ranking in quartiles and percentiles, really just to center performance and benchmark how things are heading. It may seem overwhelming, but once you really get into it, there's about 300 functions that are in a standard toolbox like Excel, some of the leading business intelligence programs that you can use to say, hey, in order to best answer the question my client has, I can use one of these functions with this data, and it'll sum it up and teach it. In addition to these basic functions, you're going to hear me use the word advanced analytics or predictive analytics. These are new cutting-edge methods that we can use to talk about, how well something might perform. You don't have to be an expert at this to be in digital marketing, but I want you to at least be aware of some of these things that are happening in the industry. We're using things like a regression method, a time series analysis, as well as some other forecasting tools to be able to predict with a high level of confidence of what might happen in the media world. We're also doing things when I hear the word forecast, I automatically pick one of these methods because it's future looking. When I hear the word automatically group, we do things like clustering, so that will cluster content together automatically so you don't have to manually organize the elements. An example of clustering that we do here is we serve up millions of pages, and being able to relate a page to a primary legal practice, whether it's motor vehicle, whether it's personal injury, whether it's intellectual property, we automatically write an algorithm that matches the pages and puts them in and categorizes them based on using some of these methods. There's also association rules. If you've ever logged on to, for example, Netflix and did a movie recommendation, we're using analytics like that to recommend content to people, where it's using some of these neat and innovative methods to communicate what's going on in the industry. Finally then, once you've got the questions laid out and then the methods applied to it and you're starting to calculate it, I always share, how can we visually communicate this information. On the screen, what you're seeing is different ways to visually show things, either with bar charts. You'll see, I'm a big believer in using maps, even if it's not at the state level, just going down to the county and also city levels to see how performance is occurring. We're also using grid indices. On the right-hand margin, you'll start to see even search engines are integrating more media, where it actually will put visualize the most high traffic hours in a bar graph type of format, integrate the map right in there, as well as the pictures associated with the content. So business intelligence is a common way where it's using data, analytical methods, as well as decisioning content like a dashboard, and then we're syndicating that out to either mobile devices or what I would call desktop computers for our end users to see how things are performing and what's now happening in the industry. So thank you for tuning in to the Business Intelligence and Reporting section. Again, my name is Jason Todd, and our next section we'll be talking about is SEO analytics.